The time is 6:30, and a quorum being present, I call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. We have 2 meeting minutes for 4/19 and 5/10/2023. Are there any questions or comments or discussion about those minutes? Could I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Next item on the agenda, agenda item A, request to extend an order of conditions, 2131 Main Street LLC, Newton, Massachusetts, 2131 Main Street, Assessors Map 96, Lot 53, DEP file number 305-1070. Could you please introduce yourself for the record and give us an overview of?
Yep, you bet. Jim Hanley, Civil Design Consultants. So this project, 2131, was, I believe was approved in 2019, I believe. We've progressed through all the site work with construction. I don't know if anyone's been out there, but essentially, they put all the foundations in the ground, essentially all the utilities in the ground. They put the stormwater management systems in the ground. We've gone out, we've done an as-built. And then, due to COVID and some of these other reasons and inflation and whatnot, they're looking for a little bit more time to be able to build out the remaining portion of the project. So really, all the stuff that is sensitive from a conservation perspective has been done. It hasn't been stabilized yet, obviously, but it's all up to grade, more or less. And this extension will allow them to go in, build the units, and then, loom seed, stabilize, and move forward.
All right. Any questions or comments about this one?
I'm good.
If that's the case, could I have a motion to approve the request to extend the order of conditions?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. All right.
Thanks.
Agenda item B, request to extend an order of conditions, 300 Ames Pond LLC, Tewksbury, Massachusetts, 300 Ames Pond Drive, Assessors Map 66, Lot 12, DEP file number 305-1089. Could you please
Jim Hanley, Civil Design Consultants. So this is on behalf of Mark Ginsberg, 300 Ames Pond LLC. Again, this was approved right around 2019, 2020. The idea there was that we were going to do earthwork. We're going to open up the site. We're going to do some tree clearing, obviously, with all the proper erosion controls in place. So that's been ongoing for the better part of 18 months, give or take. They probably have 2/3 of it complete now at this point. The site is stabilized. They've been following the NEPDES program to a T. We haven't had any issues out there, and we're just looking for a little bit more time to clean up the remaining portion of the site. This is a 3-year extension that we're looking for.
Yeah, I was going to ask. This one's 3 years, the other one was 2 years.
Yeah, just the size of the project, basically. We think we can get the other one done in 2. This one, it's a little bit more open-ended.
All right. Are there any questions or comments?
Dan, do we have to do a 3-year extension? I mean, 3 years is a long time for this site, for people to have, the abutters to have to look at those mountains of dirt, and also for the erosion controls to stay in place. Those are not, it's a plastic fence. Those are not really meant to hold up to New England weather for years and years and years, and it's already been 4 years.
So Joe, can you fill us in on how it works for the COVID extension?
Yeah.
Because part of it is,
So for this project, the request is being made for 3 years from the current expiration date. So some background is that the order was originally issued September 20th of 2019. So typically when we issue orders, they're good for 3 years, but obviously between 2019 and 2022, we had a pandemic. So in response to the pandemic, any active permits during the state of emergency, which was between 2020 and 2021, they were any active permits were tolled. So if they were active throughout the entire state of emergency, they were tolled an additional 462 days. So that's a long-winded way of saying that the new expiration date for this order, based off of that extension, is December 26, 2023. To answer your question as far as whether the commission has to accept 3 years, they don't. It's just, you can extend it up to 3 years, so that's kind of the maximum. But, you know, it's up to the commission if they think that's appropriate, or if they think a shorter time frame is more fit.
Yeah,
So I can say, as long as the site is either not frozen or not stabilized, we need to do the NEPDs. So if the concern is the erosion control, that's being monitored on a weekly or bi-weekly basis.
But the permit says daily.
I'm sorry?
The permit says that it will be monitored daily.
The erosion control?
Yeah, that's what the permit says.
Okay, so this would be specific for the NEPD's obligations that we need to address. If it's an issue, 2 to 3 years, I mean, 2 years we can live with, and if we had to come back, we would come back. Hopefully, we wouldn't have to, but that's all we're trying to avoid, is wasting your time in 2 years from now.
I mean, I just don't want to get to 3 years, nothing's done, and then we have another 3-year extension.
Yeah,
and the butters
So
to look at that.
I don't think that would be the case, but I don't operate the site. I know they worked really hard this summer. They did a lot of work out there, and they have a bit more to do. So we just want to give ourselves a little bit of time to do it.
2 years, 3 years, I'm okay with either one. If anybody wants to make a motion to extend it by 2 years, I'm certainly open to that.
I'll make a motion to extend it by 2 years.
Is
there any public comment about this?
This is not a public hearing, but if there are, it's just a request to extend an order of conditions. I will open it up unofficially to public comment, but I'm going to limit it to no more than 3 minutes.
Thank you.
All right. All right, so there's a motion to extend the order of conditions by 2 years. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Well, is there going to be public comment? There could be a motion on the floor, and there could still be discussion, right? Are you allowing public comments or no?
I am allowing public comment. I apologize. I thought you said, you responded that
I'd
you,
like to just address something.
yeah, all right, so, sorry. If you would like to, yeah, now is the time.
Bob O'Brien, Cardigan Road. Nothing adverse to what the applicant's trying to do here. They want to extend the permit on the property, but I think the 3-year length is too long, number one. And number two is, it may be linked to the planning board, but what is the linkage between this WP5 form, which is the Mass DEP Wetlands Division, and what is the relation between that and the land disturb permit that was approved by the planning board at the same time? Because this one initially went through, it was a two-headed coin. There was a planning board meetings and Concom meetings. This is just the Concom meeting, and a lot of the linkage with the WP8 form, wherever it is tied to the, disturbance permit. And I understand this is extended what's before, I understand the COVID part, no issues with it, but the land disturb permit expired November 2nd of this year after already being extended. And there's a lot of attributes on the WP8 form which are derived from the land disturb permit. And I want to know if all the provisions on the land disturb permit, are they being carried forward with this new wetlands WP8 form? They submitted drawings that this gentleman's company provided, a C1 drawing, C2, D1, D2, all site plans that were bundled and approved on the land disturb permit. And I want to know if they are staying in place or are they going away? Because there's a lot of provisions on the land disturb permit and the WP8 that are tied to those documents. And I want to know what the linkage is. I know you responded to an email to Mr. Sadwick from me yesterday, and I couldn't get a clear-cut description. I understand the WPA part about it and the COVID extension, but the thing is, there's issues out there. The original permit was approved in 2019. I understand you said they did a lot of work this summer, but that property was dormant from November of 19 until January of 2023. I know there was some other potential sales involved, and I'm with that, but I think 3 years is a bit too long. Personally, I have a 250 feet from my house, I have a 75 to 80 foot rock wall, crushed rock. Okay, and the question I have is, that rock wall, or the debris, is higher than our bylaws allow for a building in that property. So there's a rock wall, lack of better words, crushed stone, 60 to 70 feet high, that's higher than what if there was a building there was allowed. So we need that to be addressed. Having it there short-term is fine, but we can't live with it for 3 years. We can't live with it for 3 years. And the other issue is on the personal side, all the trees have been cut down. My back deck, my back windows of my house are full of dust all summer long. My in-ground pool was unusable last summer because all the sand and dust was flowing into the pool, blowing into the pool. So I understand there's some timing involved, and I'm not against them taking their time cleaning it up, but they can't take 3 years. And the other question I have is regarding this permit is, what happens if all these provisions are allowed through the order of conditions? Now, our local order of conditions are attached to the WP8 form, if you look at the original documentation that's tied to that. Not signed or endorsed by anybody, but says, here's an attachment. Kind of a question with that. I don't know why, but the other thing is, so we can't,
So
for
I'm
3
going to
years.
ask that you kind of finish your questions and stuff we're kind of going over at this point.
Okay, so, but the thing is, there's linkage between what is the linkage between the land disturb permit and this order of condition permit that they're trying to extend today? I understand the order of conditions they're trying to extend today as a standalone entity. I understand it, I got it, no issues with it. I got issues with the 3-year window. But the point is, what is the land disturb permit that was approved in conjunction with this Concom approval for that property?
So the land disturbance permit is, like, it may have been issued at the same time, but as far as I'm aware, that's a planning board permit. You know, that's granted by the planning board. So that's not really our jurisdiction. Our jurisdiction is 100 feet from the wetlands.
Right, I understand that. But I wanted to raise that issue here because the way it's all been packaged since 2019, it's been a tandem process. There was planning board meetings on September 5th, I believe, in 2019, then meetings on September 14th, 2019 with the Concom, and they're all predicated as a joint approval. So,
So, yeah, I can jump in if you don't mind. So, yeah, They are two separate permits, so the order of conditions is issued by the Concom, the land disturbance permit is issued by the planning board. The only linkage there is that they were just issued at simultaneously, and that's not unique to this project. That kind of
They were what? They were issued what?
almost simultaneously, like the land disturbance permit with the original order of conditions, around the same time.
Yeah, well, that's, okay.
Yeah, so that's not unique to this project. That happens with a lot of projects because a lot of redevelopment projects or new development has both jurisdiction for planning and Concom. So the commission extending the order, again, is separate from whatever the land disturbance permit is. I know they relate to the same things, though. They basically govern the same things. I don't know when the land disturbance permit expires, but,
It expired November 2nd.
okay, so that would be,
It was extended. I have a document right there. It'll show that to you. But again, it's a planning board activity. I understand.
okay.
So my main focus is, there were some provisions made in the land disturb permit and provisions made in the initial wetlands DEP document about erosion control, about daily inspections of the site, about seeding, about topsoiling, about making sure all the piles are covered. I want to make sure that those are going to remain in effect, those provisions.
Yes, those provisions are covered in the order and will remain in effect.
So, right now and there, okay, so they are guaranteed in the provisions, and the applicant, through his representative, aware of that, and they will honor those things, okay?
Yes.
That's 100%, yes.
So,
Just to recap, we're fine with the 2-year. So if the commission's more comfortable with the 2-year, we're fine with that, too.
All right, if you have a question or comment, please.
and one other question, if I may?
So
Oh,
there's
sorry.
somebody in line, and you've gone over.
Yeah, I know.
well
Thank you. I
over 3
appreciate
minutes
that.
I originally.
I won't come to the next meeting, so I'll use 3 minutes from that, okay? I'm only kidding.
I'll use whatever time he has left. So I won't be long.
One other question is, allowing them an extension, no issue. No issue. But I think there need to be some time parameters and say, okay, and I believe for the existing conditions, a report was supposed to be given to our Concom every 30, 60 days. This is what we've done, and this is what we're doing in the next 30, 60, 90 days. And I'm not sure that happened. If it did, supposedly the contractor who they had was supposed to provide a report to the Concom. This is what we've done, and this is what we're doing.
Sir, I appreciate your comments, but like the chair said, it's been past 3 minutes. We'd like to
Okay,
move
all
forward
right,
with the meeting.
Thank you. But there's some gaps there, and,
Understood.
okay. But back to that, if you're going to
Please,
extend.
sir,
Yeah,
please
we're-
let the
we
other
have to cut
president
you
speak.
off. There's other people. Thank you. Can you please introduce yourself for the record? Name and address.
My name's Ken Alley. I live on 100 Cardigan Road, which is in the shadow of the mountain that's out there, literally. Is there any way in allowing these extensions, if you can separate out, for example, the buffer trees that were supposed to be planted as part of this this phase of the work, that would help a lot to mitigate the thing that we are literally looking at 100 feet from our house.
So I'm not exactly sure what you're asking.
Well,
to
part of
extend
the work in this phase is to put buffer trees, 10-foot high buffer trees.
Is there, I'll ask the
Yeah.
applicant, is there,
Yeah.
when are the,
So,
when are you
so
planning?
part of the approval, we proposed and you accepted were a earthen berm at the limit of the earthwork that was to be planted on top. So the earthen berm is placed, some of the trees are placed, but they take a little bit of time to grow, right? So some of them are placed. The berm is in place, and there's still a 50-ish foot buffer between the edge of disturbance on our site and the nearest property line. So that's kind of where that sits right now.
I didn't quite hear the last part of that.
It's partially complete right now. The earthen berm is placed, some of the
Yes,
trees are placed. And then there's also the 50-foot buffer strip that is still between our disturbance and the nearest property
Well,
line.
I mean, the whole purpose of the evergreens was to create that buffer, to finish that buffer. Is there any reason why those can't be done immediately and then whatever extension that they need to decide what they're going to do with the site, I guess, could come in a different timetable?
So what I can say is that the original order of conditions didn't place a specific time frame on that element of the project. And so although I can speak with the developer to maybe hasten that part of the project, they're requesting to extend this order. And so in order to accomplish what you just said, the order would have to be amended to reflect that, so the Concom never approved that, right? So what's in front of us today is just a request to extend what's already in place. So you're basically suggesting altering the conditions of the order, which we can't do now because that would require a whole separate application process to amend the existing order. So although I can say something to the developer and reflect, your concerns.
Well, you could mention to Mark that every time I've talked to him, he said that they're going to plant those trees in the spring.
Okay, I mean,
Just remind him.
I can make a note to,
Spring of what year? Spring of 28.
All right, if there's no further questions or comments, there is a motion on the table, but I'm going to ask for it again. Is there a motion to extend the request to extend the order of conditions by 2 years?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Thank you.
Thank you. One more.
Agenda item C, request for certificate of compliance, Gen 4 Builders LLC, Tewksbury, Massachusetts, 40 Long Meadow Road, Assessors Map 26, Lot 124, DEP file number 305-1159.
Jim Hanley, Civil Design Consultants, and I'm here for 40 Long Meadow Road, helping Dick out. He's busy tonight, Dick from Woodland Design. So essentially, this is single-family residential.
Can you just introduce yourself for the record? too?
Bob Sullivan with Gen 4 Builders.
Thank you.
Single-family residential was designed and approved by Woodland Design. The building, the residence sits back maybe 150 feet off of Long Meadow Road. Residence has been built, driveway is in, utilities are in, stormwater systems are in. There was a bit of wetland mitigation that needed to be done. Dick had walked the site with Joe. They had gone through everything, and essentially, Woodland provided a assessment that it's been built in substantial compliance with the approved plans and permit conditions, and we're here tonight to request the certificate of compliance. The one item that we can't address completely right now is the wetland mitigation requires, I think it's 18 months or a certain amount of time to be established, right? So like, that's the one thing that may be an exclusion to this request, but I guess I'd leave that to you and Joe to discuss.
So yeah, my main concern, like, I'm not opposed to that, but I just, what do you propose to make sure that it actually happens, that the full certificate of compliance? Because it'd be a partial certificate of compliance for everything except the, specific parts. But
Yeah,
how do we guarantee that
I guess.
it
that-
eventually comes back?
Yeah, I guess similar to just how a typical certificate is leveraged, right? It's a mark on the title, so we want to get that cleaned up and get that off the title. So that's part of the process, and that's what we'd be committed to doing.
Any questions or comments from the commission? Joe, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I guess just something to note on the as-built is a retaining wall was built. So I don't think that was part of the approved plans, but it was still just something to note that was installed in the buffer zone. I'm not sure if this was mentioned as I was walking around the room, but part of the original plans included the construction of a pool and a shed. So in coordination with Mr. Dick Cuco, getting the partial certificate of compliance for all portions of the site besides the wetland replication area would basically close out that part of the project. So any potential new homeowner wouldn't be able to build that pool or that shed under this order. And then it's really up to the commission if they want to allow a partial certificate that just doesn't include the wetland replication area. But
So what's the advantage of a partial certificate?
So,
partial certificates, there's no, I guess, advantage. It's just someone requesting just verification from the commission that at least a part of the project or an area in particular is compliant with the order so that they can close out that part. I think from the applicant's perspective, it may look better for selling the home. But
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, what we like to do is when we get to a point where construction has progressed to a certain point, and we can get confirmation from the town, DPW, planning board, that you're good with the improvements that have been made, that just takes something off the table for us that we don't have to then chase around in 2 years once the wetland mitigation has established itself, so.
So then you still have to come back in 2 years, though? and-
Yeah, we would, yep. And this is typical. Whenever we have any wetland mitigation, we have to, DEP basically determines that there has to be a certain amount of time that the plants need to establish themselves and live for a certain amount of time to actually achieve the replication.
And so just to be clear, it would be you taking on the responsibility over the next 2 years, or is that on the homeowner, whoever purchases the property?
Of maintaining the wetland plantings?
Monitoring, and then if there's any additional plantings or work needed in that area to.
Yeah,
compliance?
so Norse Environmental has been retained to do the actual, the inspections, right? And to write the reports that are needed for that. But then I guess it would be the responsibility of the homeowner then at that point to comply with the, whatever requirements there are for it.
and do you already have a potential buyer for this
Yes,
property?
The closing's second week of December.
All right. So I just want to make sure that they know that it's still required, and if somebody shows up on their property to, take some pictures or, monitor, they're not going
No, they're
to
aware.
kick them out or anything.
Yep.
All right. Are there any other questions or comments from the?
I just, for my own education, how does the bank handle something like that? Like, how do you get a mortgage with something like that on the property?
I don't know.
So,
I can't answer that question.
so sometimes what happens is some money is left in escrow, right?
Okay.
To address the potential that there could be some additional work needed. Sometimes that's done, but like the whole idea here is to say, okay, 90% of this site is good when they turn it over to the new buyer, right? And to just kind of focus it in, but it's still on the title, right? So they wouldn't be able to sell that house again, right, without coming back to you guys and getting the relief from that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And then the last thing I wanted to say is, I would still recommend sediment controls be left in place, except for those that are kind of behind the house, so kind of like we talked about on site. So that would be kind of like an ongoing condition, even as a partial,
Okay.
until it's stabilized.
All right, if there's no further discussion, could I have a motion to approve the certificate of compliance as discussed at this meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well.
Thank you.
Agenda item D, public hearing, notice of intent, Norse Environmental Services, Inc., Drake, Massachusetts, on behalf of Robert Stone, 1306 South Street, Assessors Map 110, Lot 58, DEP file number 305-1193.
How's it going?
Thank you.
Could you please introduce yourself for the record?
Yes, my name is Maureen Harold from Norse Environmental Services, here on behalf of Robert Stone. We filed a notice of intent with the commission to raise an existing screen room at the rear of the dwelling and would like to construct a sunroom. The work is proposed 54 feet away from the wetland area. Just real quickly, the wetland is shown as colored as green on the plan. The 25-foot no disturb is in yellow. The 50-foot no structure is in purple color, and the erosion controls are shown in orange. So no trees are required to be cut or removed. Erosion controls are in place. We did receive a DEP file number. Fortunately, we have no comments, and I can open it up to the commission with any questions or concerns.
I'll ask again, are there any questions or comments from the commission?
It's pretty straightforward. I'll let Joe read what he needs to read.
I initially didn't see the sediment controls on the plan, so all I have for comments are standard conditions number 1 through number 4 and number 9 through number 19 to apply to the project, which are just, basic standard stuff.
Sure thing.
All right, any other questions or comments?
One comment from me, nice map. Nice and easy to read.
Yeah. All right, so this is an official public hearing, so I am required by law to let anybody speak for, I can limit the amount, but the Supreme Court says I can't make you not swear at me. So now is the chance if you really want it. Right now is the public hearing. If there's anybody from the public who would like to make a comment, now is the time to do so. Not seeing anybody. Could I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. And could I have a motion to approve this notice of intent as discussed at this meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Thank you
Great.
very much.
Thank you for your time.
All right. Agenda item E, public hearing, notice of intent, Civil Design Consultants, Inc., Andover, Massachusetts, on behalf of Treehouse Brewing Company, Charlton, Massachusetts, 1879 Main Street, Assessors Map 84, Lot 18, DEP file number 305-1185. Do you want, I don't want to push this.
200 years old.
once again, could you introduce yourself for the record?
You bet. Jim Hanley, Civil Design Consultants. 1879 Main Street. This is for Treehouse Brewing Company. So, been going on this for a little while now, so I think we originally filed in May. We have put together what we thought was a plan that met all of the standards relative to redevelopment projects. We were very comfortable with that. We went and we found some additional professional experts who basically reinforced what our opinion was. Went back and forth with Planning Department and Conservation, as well as DPW a few times. We got a letter maybe in the middle of October, give or take, essentially asking for a little bit more from us. We took another look at everything, and we've made a modification to the plan. So the modification essentially is to eliminate the proposed infiltration basin, which was right on the, basically the edge of the proposed parking area. We've eliminated that, and we've put in place what's called a wet pond, right? So it's a different BMP. That BMP is located further down by the river. And what we've done is we've turned that infiltration basin into a sediment forebay. We've revised the plans. We resubmitted those last week along with response letters to DPW, and we got some comments from DEP. So we've addressed those and resubmitted those. We haven't gotten anything back yet. They've only had it for not even a week, I think. But we wanted to come here tonight just to kind of give you an update, let you know where we are. This project now complies, we believe, completely. Like, we don't think that there's any ambiguity now, any argument relative to, we were talking a lot about maximum extent practical last time along. I believe at this point now, we've addressed everything we need to address for this project, and we're hoping we get that feedback from the town. We are here, though, I did want to mention that one of the items that came into play when we modified this plan is that we have a portion of the wet pond within your 25-foot no disturbance zone. I can't move it further away because there is a sewer easement there. We do a little bit of grading in that easement, but I'm trying to keep the actual pond itself out of the easement, obviously. I went out today with Joe. We walked that site. Essentially, what's out there right now is pavement guardrails. It's the go-kart track that literally goes around. It's in that 25. We've been proposing to pull all that pavement out anyways. And what will end up happening is that this will be a portion, this portion will have some grading activities, but it'll still be landscaped at the end of the day. So there's a little bit of impact in that area, and that's something I wanted to bring to your attention to try to get your support for that so we can move this project forward.
And can you just go over again what the wet basin, the features of that?
Yeah, so the infiltration basin, which is what we had before, basically infiltrates a certain volume of water based on the amount of pavement it receives. There was discussion about the pretreatment requirement, and that's what kind of tripped us up and made us not agree with DPW. The wet basin, what it does is, essentially what we do is we locate the groundwater elevation in the soil through digging test pits. And then below that groundwater elevation, we excavate a pond that's 3 to 6 feet on average depth, right? So the idea is that pond during the course of the year holds water. And the way the DEP requires us to design this is that it holds twice the water quality volume. And so as new water comes in from the forebay off of the parking lot into the pond, it essentially pushes water that's been sitting in that pond out. And when it's sitting in there, it's dropping all its suspended solids, right? So it's cleaner water that's leaving. So we've used this a few times in the past in town. It's one of the BMPs that DEP sanctions.
All right, and I'm not sure if I'm just looking at the wrong slide, but is there any fencing around the pond, any proposed fencing?
No, what there is at or around, just below the elevation that we call the estimated seasonal high water, there's a 6-foot aquatic bench, is what they call it, or a safety bench, right? So that if you were around the pond, right, you'd have like this 6-foot area before you'd fall 3 feet or 5 feet or 6 feet into the water. Yeah.
Any questions or comments from the commission?
So I just have a question. If it's a 3 to 6 foot deep pond, won't it just, how deep is the water table? I mean, won't it just
So
always be full
this
of
is
water?
always the challenge and the balance in what we do. We have very good soils out there. We have very sandy soils. And that allows water to pass through relatively easy. But we also had very high estimated seasonal high groundwater, right? So the groundwater, if you looked at the test pits that are in the package, they basically range at about 24 inches below grade. So the way we approached this was, normally when we dig a pond, we build a berm and we hold back water. In this application, because we're in the floodplain, what we can actually do is cut. We can cut out so that we're not filling in that floodplain, and then we're not taking any volume that's in the pond toward the floodplain. So that's.
Okay.
Joe, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah. So as far as your question, Linda, I'm kind of letting the applicant and our engineering department have that conversation as far as like engineered structures and what's approved and what's allowed and what's regulated, because that's kind of beyond what my skill set is currently. But as far as what's in front of the commission today, so there is encroachment into the 25-foot no disturb zone. So it's about getting a waiver for that encroachment. And the way that our bylaw is written is that waiver can be provided as long as it provides a substantial public benefit. That's at least one of the clauses in the waiver. So it's whether the commission sees this as, substantial public benefit or not. So that's something to be discussed. Second, as we discussed on site today, I think if you're doing the work in the 25-foot no disturb zone, and it's great that you're removing some of the impervious and revegetating it, but just seeing kind of a more robust like planting plan, so something that's defensible that the commission can hold someone accountable to.
Yeah, we're agreeable to that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that, and I think that's really it for now. It's still going to be in a holding pattern of reviewing by DPW for compliance and
Do you have any idea when that review will be completed?
I have no idea.
All right.
We literally submitted, I think it was Thursday of last week. So we just submitted. Usually it takes a couple weeks, so.
Yeah. So, yeah, we won't be taking a vote on this tonight.
Yeah, and I'm not
but-
asking, What I wanted to do was just introduce the change to the plan to you and get a sense for your support on the 25. So the way I understand the regulation is to even go in and remove the pavement and the metal guardrails that are there, we would need to come to you and say, hey, we want to restore this area, right? It doesn't make sense to have pavement in there. I would need to come to you and ask for this anyhow. The only change now is that we're going to slightly modify the surface to build that portion of the pond that sits in there.
All right, so yeah, we have to consider the waiver of whether this is a public good, which, I mean, I've heard plenty of people in town complain about what this site currently looks like, so it would be nice to improve it in some way. But we can have further discussions about that, as the time warrants. But for the time being, I'll first open up to the public, And I won't close the public hearing, but then if there's no further,
Just ask one question. The temp dewatering basin that's close to the wetlands,
Yeah.
what's the intent/practice for the dewatering activities during?
So it's only to, as they're dewatering the basin, to allow them to excavate down to elevation, I think it's elevation 76 on there.
Yeah.
Groundwater, we think, is relatively close to 82, right? So that's 6 feet. So you want to excavate out in fairly dry conditions, or as dry as you can. So the idea is you'd have a sump similar to 1660 Main, right? Where we'd pump that into that dewatering basin and let that overflow.
You're pumping it into there and letting it overflow? Is that what you said?
During construct, just to allow us to excavate out the.
So you're not pumping that into the sewer or anything,
Oh,
treating?
no,
it
no,
into
no,
the
yeah, no,
sewer?
it'll overtop and then make its way into the wetland area that's, there.
Is there any TSS control or anything on that?
Yeah, that's why we do it, right, that's the
50
whole,
Okay.
yeah, that's the whole idea behind that dewatering hay bale basin, is to just pull as much TSS out of there, sediment out of there.
In where again were the Concom markers proposed?
So I think I'd have to go to my plans, I believe they were on sheet C3. So if you look on sheet C3, they were parallel with the backside of the easement, 25 feet apart. We bumped them out further over here just so they weren't going through the basin. Didn't think that made much sense. So we can, if you have a different suggestion, we're agreeable to that too.
I guess I don't really have a better suggestion, just because along the 25 is kind of awkward,
Yeah.
but
And this gives you more space, right? Restricts the use more.
so would everything behind where the markers are placed be left as natural vegetation? So it seems like that would extend a little bit beyond the 25.
Yeah, so like we talked about, I think we would need to update the operations and maintenance plan.
Okay.
To change it from an infiltration basin to a wet pond. There's some maintenance associated with that. And
Right,
we have
yeah,
to
yeah.
cut it maybe twice a year or something, so.
Yeah.
That's what we probably do.
Okay.
any other questions or comments from the commission or from our agent before opening it up to the public? Not hearing anything. This is a public hearing. If anybody has any questions or comments, now is the time to do so, but I'm not going to close the public hearing just yet. All right, not seeing anybody. Could I have a motion do you have a specific date in mind for when we should continue this to?
Yeah, we're kind of at the mercy of the town now, so I think your next is the 27th. Is that right?
It's the 13th of December.
Your next hearing is the 13th?
Yep.
Oh, okay, so hopefully by then, we're in position and we know where the DPW stands.
So could I have a motion to continue this public hearing and notice of intent to the December 13th meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Thank you. All right. And next is Agenda item F, public hearing, notice of intent, Civil Design Consultants, Inc., on behalf of Dr. Nitesh Nahata, 1438 Main Street, Assessors Map 59, Lot 58, DP file number 305-1187. Could you please introduce yourself for the record and fill us in
Sure.
on the details?
Yep, Jim Hanley, Civil Design Consultants. So I'm here on behalf of Dr. Nahata for 1438 Main Street. This is another project that's been going on for maybe 60, 90 days, give or take. Basically, the project is to make some site modifications on the commercial side to allow for 12 additional parking spaces to address tenant demand that he has. We've been to planning board 2 or 3 times. We have just begun working with the HOA at Serena Woods. This has become kind of the focus of how we're trying to move this forward. We believe we've presented it to planning. The direction that we've got is to work with the HOA to try to work out some of their concerns. Last week, we had a discussion between the HOA. They hired their own consulting engineer to look at our work. We had a really good discussion, 90 minutes long, went through a laundry list of items that they had. We made some initial adjustments to the plan, sent those over to them last week, and are awaiting response. I'd really like to be able to get on the same page with them, continue to try to address their concerns before we begin real technical review, either with conservation or planning.
All right, so.
But that's the idea. That's where we are.
Sounds like you're making progress, but it might
I hope so,
slow
yeah.
progress.
Yeah, it's slow progress,
Yeah.
but progress nonetheless, yeah.
All right.
Yep.
And also not looking to vote on this at this
Right.
meeting, but sometime in the future.
I think so. I mean, the 13th may be too tight, but I'd like to try to hold that date maybe, because I think that there's a potential for it, so,
right.
yeah.
All right, so this is a public hearing. If there's anybody from the public who would like to make a comment, now's the time to do so. I may limit your time just for the sake of everything, I guess, but please introduce yourself, name and address for the record.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Arafat Khan. I'm from Serena Woods, the HOA Association. And as you already know, this is a project to eliminate a strip of landscape and convert it into parking spaces for customers, obviously revenue-generating customers. So Serena Woods is not new to DEP. DEP is already aware of our commitment to conservation. For no fault of ours, the residents have been maintaining the stream as well as the wetland for over 7 years now. And we are very much committed to continue to maintain that. And we've got some concerns with some of these parking spaces, particularly the ones that are within the 50-feet buffer. There are about 3 of them, and I believe that the applicant has filed for a waiver for a reduced snow area. And that reduced snow area basically looks like this right here. Basically, it's just a bush with bamboo that keeps coming back, and even if you remove. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is, there's no real storage areas for snow. And we had already shared these concerns with the civil engineering firm representing the applicant, but they had mentioned that, the snow is going to be trucked off site. I don't know how effective that would be because, we are residents, we are right behind the commercial property. Initially, this property was approved as a mixed-use property, commercial and residential at the back. Clearly, after 1 p.m. on a Friday afternoon, the business doesn't operate. So if you have a snow late on a Friday night, we are stuck pretty much the entire weekend. And we've got seniors, residents, kids who live in the residential community who would would be affected by this. And, we have a verbal assurance, yes, but we'll have to see how it's going to be, will be affected by that. Because, 7 years ago in the very same hall, our homes that we live in, it was approved. And till this day, every time it rains, our homes are flooded by water. All the codes were right. Everything was taken into consideration. Everything was approved as per plan. But I don't know how our sufferings have not gone away. Every year, every rain, I've seen senior people, kids, damage to property and life. Anyway, so the spaces that I wanted to talk about is so these are the three spaces that I was mentioning about that's fitting, coming right within the 50-feet buffer area from the wetland. And I could see that there are three more, but that's in the 100-feet stream buffer. So this area right now we are using as snow storage. Obviously, this entire strip is being eliminated for car parking spaces and additional land area. Conservation Committee help us protect the land here because we are using this for snow storage, and that is also being converted into parking for commercial property here. So we had requested to have this area at least reserved for snow storage, so that in an emergency, right now with this particular plan, we have nowhere to put the snow, right? So these three spaces could be definitely reserved for snow storage, right? And the gradient of the road also, it's sloping inwards. It's moving towards the residential property. So what's going to happen is basically on the snow melt or the surface melt, it's going to flow towards the residential property. I want to say maybe into our homes, but there's a catch basin here. So I don't think that our catch basin inside our property has the capacity to take that additional snow melt or surface water, drainage, or rainwater. And moreover, the entire parking lot is being opened up with these two access points. So the parking lot is at a higher gradient from the common roadway. So that water is also going to flow onto the common roadway and flow into the property. And there's a little wet pond right behind our, at the entrance of our property. So that's going to get overwhelmed with the additional water that's going to be flowing in. So we don't have any details of the gradient. There's no confirmation or regrading of the parking lot for the water to flow away from the residential property. So right now, this is what we have so far. There's going to be an additional catch basin right at the corner, but I don't know how much that is going to be effective in collecting the water because obviously the land is sloping this side, means the water is going to flow down, right? So that is what I wanted to bring to this committee. These are some of the concerns. Of course, there are other residents also who couldn't be present today, because the short notice and changes. We weren't able to be present here. But of course, we are looking forward to the next hearing, which is on 13th, right? Hopefully, all the residents will also be here and will share the feedback and comments on the existing plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Are there any other public comments? Not seeing anybody. And I will ask again for the commissioner or the agent. Anybody have any questions or comments?
I guess to the snow storage issue, I read the engineering report and they don't recommend waiving the snow storage waiver. Is there any plan to accommodate for snow storage on the site?
Which, was that DPW or was that?
DPW, yeah. It's in the packet that I have, so maybe it was changed at some point
Yeah.
on October 26th.
I think, I'm not sure, but I think that was the HOA's peer review.
No, this is from
it was DPW?
Yeah, it's from Andrew.
Oh, okay. It's something we're going to have to take into consideration.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, if there's no further discussion at this time, could I have a motion to continue the public hearing and notice of intent to the December 13th meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Thank you. And now, public hearing, notice of intent, Civil Design Consultants, Inc., on behalf of LNG Main Street LLC, 1167, 1177, and 1187 Main Street, Assessors Map 61, lots 1, 105, and 107 respectively. DEP file number 305-1192. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim Hanley, Civil Design Consultants. So this is our second meeting for 1167, 1177, 1187 Main Street. We came to you, I think it was about a month ago, give or take, and we'd submitted a full application, but we asked for your willingness to limit the review specific to the status of Darby Brook. We did provide you with some information on that, and at that time, we had just received a response letter or a comment letter from the town's peer review company, TEC and Associates. And since that time, we've made some modifications to the plan, right? And so that's what I was trying to, at the last meeting, I was trying to avoid reviewing stuff that we knew was likely to change. So with that said, I think like what I'd like to do is kind of give you an overview of the adjustments that we've made to the project, which is a reduction in density and a reduction in disturbance. And then essentially review, there was 3 items that Joe had noted in his review comments that we believe we've addressed. So this plan here is an exhibit plan. We did submit plans for the commission last week, but this shows the adjustment that we've made to the plan, which from this distance doesn't look all that significant, but the blue hatched area, that's about 6,500 square feet. That was pervious pavement that we were proposing to put down. We needed that to support the parking that was required for 30 units. Since the initial application was submitted, we've downsized the proposal from 30 residential units to 24 residential units, and that allows us to reduce the parking by somewhere around 15-ish spaces. At the time of the initial application, we had maybe 5 extra spaces, so we're able to cut about 18 spaces and all the pervious and all the pavement and access aisles that went along with that. So at the end of the day, we had a reduction in disturbed area of about 6,500 square feet, and we've increased the buffer between the resource area to the west, which is the B series wetland, from about 70 feet to about 115 feet, right? So we significantly increased it by almost 45 feet, give or take, between the edge of the wetland and the edge of the proposed parking area. So that kind of gives you a little bit of a sense for the change to the plan. The couple of things that Joe had mentioned in his letter that we'd like to just maybe try to iron out here is the information that I gave you there tonight has the photos that we referenced the last time we were here. And just to refresh your memories, that was an ANRAD that was filed by 1201 Main Street, which is a butter directly to the, I guess it would be the east along Main Street. They had gone out there, they had reviewed, their wetlands people had reviewed it. They had taken pictures 4 days within a 12-month period. It was reviewed by your wetlands consultant and determined to be intermittent. They also provided GPS locations on those photos, and it's probably about 15 feet from the outlet pipe that drains the B series wetland. So I'm just going to approach this here as I talk. So essentially, there is a brook that comes down through here, and then Once it hits McClellan Oil, it goes through a pipe into the C-Series wetlands and then further out to the northeast. We believe that we have sufficient information to satisfy the regulations specific to this series of wetlands in the stream channel that's in here. Based on the information that we have, really should be intermittent. We also had some pictures of this area dry, and we also have historic knowledge of the area, that stream bed does dry out. It's not dry generally, but it does dry out from time to time, annually, generally. Pictures that we had.
Just one moment.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can I just see the microscope? Oh, it's on.
All right.
Thank you.
I'm not going to restart, okay? So we did have pictures of this branch of wetlands dry. Unfortunately, that was during drought conditions, so we just don't have the pictures for this area here. So what we're asking, we'd like a determination actually, but what we're asking for tonight is that the commission review the information that we've provided, make a determination that this B-series wetland portion of Darby Brook is in fact intermittent because we satisfy all those regulations. And for the purposes of moving this project forward, we're willing to say that at this point, unless it dries up, this is perennial, and we'll design the project under that assumption. So what we looked at as you come here, this the way the regulations read is that essentially where it goes under a culvert that's in excess of 200 feet, you essentially go perpendicular to the inlet of that culvert. We put this analysis together, and then we tried to modify this plan to make sure that whatever changes to this plan worked with the assumption that we would apply the 200-foot riverfront area to that C-series wetland. So. And then the last thing, it's the first couple of pages in the handout that I just gave you. Again, it talks about the 25-foot buffer. You guys have the 25-foot buffer. We prefer no disturbance at all. What I've done is we've itemized on page, I guess it's page 4, existing versus proposed. So we have these older sites. There's just development inside of the 25-foot. So the red areas show areas of existing pavement, impervious surface that we will be removing as part of this project. I itemized that on the second page here, but essentially there's 1,086 square feet of impervious surface along that A-series wetland, which is along the southern property line. We're removing all but 23 square feet, so there's a 98% reduction, and the only impervious surface that we're going to have is actually the top of a retaining wall that runs along the access drive that we're proposing only to further limit any kind of impact within that the 25-foot. Joe and I walked this as well this morning. He suggested that we, at a minimum, beef up the landscaping and restoration plan within the 25 feet, and we're certainly agreeable to that. The only other impacts inside of that are some grading activities specific to drainage, where we're just going to pull the grading back to allow for a pipe to discharge into that wetland. With that being said, if the commission has any questions, I'll try to answer them for you.
Anybody at this time have any questions or comments?
I'll just say again, I don't get why we're looking at pictures from 2015. Like, why don't you go out there today and take some pictures?
Because it's full of water.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
So, I mean, that's the
Yeah.
bottom line, but.
Right, so,
So we don't write the regulations, we just try to follow them,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
And so those regulations are very specific, we're obligated to follow them, there's no time frame. I would get it if they were 50 years old, but the idea that they're 8 years old, I mean, it's not, they're not 100 years old, so. The commission has already made the determination specific to this portion of Darby Brook in 2015, and it seems like it's reasonable to expect a consistent determination.
I think that was in a very different time, climate-wise.
And so I'm going to push back on that because, I mean, in thinking about it, if you have an area of flat land and you keep on building, putting land up and raising the level, eventually, if you do it in enough places, that water's going to pool at the bottom where it used to be flat, but now it's at the bottom of what is now raised up surrounding area. So if we're consistent in that other parts are intermittent streams, like I kind of see that as other parts are no longer going to be intermittent. It's kind of the opposite. We're pushing more water elsewhere by continually allowing, this type of work to be done. So I'm not sure if you have a response to that.
So I guess my only response is that all we're trying to do is literally follow the regulations, right? And the regulations say 4 days within 1 year of documented with a photograph. If it's after, I think it's 2002, we have that. It's from 8 years ago, not from 100 years ago. And not only did the commission make the determination, but the person that they pay for their professional opinion, who's very familiar with this part of town, in this town in general, recommended that that the entire stream, right, from the entire thing through would be considered intermittent. What we're trying to do tonight is kind of come to you with, hey, we think we absolutely satisfy it for that B series wetland, right? But we don't for the C. So we'll design around that for the C series wetland, but at the end of the day, this is like a cookbook black and white thing, right? Do we have the pictures or do we not have the pictures? We do have the pictures. So to me, it's meets the regulation for intermittent.
Yeah, so that's the, that is the difficulty of this, like, it does seem like you check off all those boxes. And if we vote one way, it's gonna be appealed by somebody. If we vote the other way, it's gonna be appealed by somebody else. So
I mean, just so we're all on the same page, though, we're literally going to be 117 feet away from the closest wetland flag, right? And the stream channel, I'm going to just estimate it's 15 feet inside of the wetland, right? So that means we're going to be somewhere about 135 feet from the edge of our disturbance, our parking lot, to that stream channel. In between those two today is McClellan Oil, right, that is basically paved. Everything is paved, right? Industrial site has been developed since 2000, give or take. And then on the residential side, Joe was out there today with me, there's a full-size tennis court, right, that we're literally removing, increasing the separation between the two. So I feel like we're doing everything that can reasonably be expected to provide the greatest buffer that we can, but we're just looking to say, hey, here's the information, these are your regulations. I don't see how we don't comply with those regulations.
Joe, based on your knowledge of the regulation and discussion with Mass DEP, is there a statute of limitations on the data? Or can it, how far back can the data go and still be applicable? Or is that at the discretion of the Conservation Commission?
So, in regard to that specific question, because I read this section of the regulation, which is pretty brief, it's just a paragraph or two. It does say the commission shall accept that this is an intermittent stream, provided that, these two paragraphs can be met. To double check that, I emailed Mass DEP, and I did mention this at the last meeting as well. Just to say, like, does it not matter when these photographs are sent? Like, can it be sent in 2003 and now it's considered intermittent in perpetuity? And so the answer to that question was, I guess it's really not a shall. There's a little bit, according to Mass DEP anyway, there's a little bit more flexibility in there where the commission can still have the judgment of accepting how old the photographs are. So they can use that in their judgment of determining whether those photographs were taken in an appropriate time relative to the time in which the presumption of a perennial stream is trying to be overcome. Does that answer your question? So,
Wait, whoa, what was that last sentence? Perennial streams being overcome, not the other way, turning from intermittent to perennial, but perennial to intermittent? Is that how it's phrased? So I think that matters too, because it's intermittent now, right? Because it's already been.
No,
Oh, it's perennial? I thought you said in 2015 it was voted as, or approved as
Right, but
intermittent.
so I'm starting from the first point, which is the USGS map.
Yeah.
Right, so it shows perennial on that.
But in the town, it's been voted as intermittent, right?
Bingo. Yeah, right, so that's why there's this kind of,
Yeah.
so this is the other part that I wanted to discuss. And like the last meeting that we discussed this, there's a lot of evidence at different times where Darby Brook was considered, where it was voted to be intermittent, but each instance in which Darby Brook was being evaluated, there wasn't strict adherence to the regulations, with the exception of this 2015 review by TEC where they took the photos, right? So that is the most compelling argument to comply with these regulations, is because they do have the 4 photos within a non-drought period. The photos have been provided. I guess technically there wasn't like the affidavit that of credible evidence that was signed, but it was reviewed by the commission at the time. So, even with that condition of the regulations, you can even say they could meet that if you had a lenient interpretation of that part. The part where if you really want to be strict to this regulation is, let me just read it verbatim. So it's when the stream is observed during a non-drought period on a stream not significantly affected by drawdown from withdrawals of water supply wells, direct withdrawals, impoundments, or other human-made flow reductions or diversions. So in between Round Pond and where these photos were collected, there's 2 culverts, one of which has a history of beaver activity being blocked up and otherwise impoundment of water. And so the conclusion or an ultimate disagreement that we had at the last meeting was, your argument was, well, just because it wasn't recorded doesn't mean it never happened and it was never observed. And I guess my personal position was, if that's not provided, it shouldn't be presumed that it was looked at and considered. And so that's basically a summary of the last meeting a little bit.
so what I would say to that is that if you look at the photographs that were provided, it wasn't one single location, right, where they took 4 pictures. They took pictures of this entire reach, right? So there's probably, I don't know what there's, 10 or 12 pictures there. There isn't one specific location. And then the presumption is that the engineering company that did it, and then the reviewer didn't follow the regulation to make the determination. And that seems overly burdensome to me. And then the other thing that I thought was very interesting is that you had provided information relative to the beaver maintenance device or whatever that was. And I believe if you looked at the date of when that permit was issued and when it was installed, it was within a very short period of time between when that was installed. You would make the assumption, it's reasonable to say there's not a beaver issue if you just had this device installed 3 months before the pictures were taken, right? So, you know, the preponderance of evidence, we can all look at like one thing and cling on to that, but the preponderance of evidence, to me, is very clear that the B series at least is intermittent. You know, I mean, we could probably continue to try to make the case that the C series is too, based on personal knowledge of the applicant, of the consultant, of, you know, people in the community that are more familiar with this stream body than I am, but we're not, right? We're just coming to you with the data and the evidence so that you shall, right, make the determination that this is intermittent.
Joe, is the impoundment made by beavers or human-made?
If I recall the documentation from the health department files, it would have started off as a beaver impoundment, but then the device would be a human, like, I mean, it's kind of both, because you're.
Because, yeah, the way the regulation's written is human-made. It's not necessarily beavers causing it, it has to be human-made. I guess based off all the information presented and how you're relaying the regulation, I don't think it's perennial. I think it's intermittent.
That's what democracy is all about.
Can we just ask what, if it was perennial, what would change about the?
Yeah, I was gonna
Oh,
be
that's a
my
good question. So like, we've designed this so that we have some flexibility, right? And that's why we have 135 feet to the stream bed, right? And you know, the 200-foot riverfront is kind of like the limit of, but we're entitled to do certain things within that area. We have this flexibility, but much like when we came to you looking for this partial certificate of compliance previously tonight, I like to kind of box in the issues that I have as opposed to let these things kind of linger out there. So I feel that to represent my client correctly and professionally, this is, we have all the data to determine that that portion is intermittent, and that I think that's a reasonable request. I don't think it would change all that much, except I'd probably give you a lot more paperwork between now and when hopefully we got this thing approved.
So, yeah, I think we've just come to that conclusion as far as, just all the evidence has been brought out to the commission. So I think it would be helpful anyways in terms of the applicant in this project going forward, if there would be like something like a straw vote as far as like whether this would be considered intermittent or perennial, because obviously that would, where everyone's here from the commission, so that's helpful. And it would help the applicant just going forward, like from a planning
Yes.
perspective.
Without a doubt.
And unless, I mean, the commission is obviously entitled to do whatever, but.
Yeah, I mean,
Not whatever. But I mean, my opinion, just to, you bring the photos 8 years old to benefit your cause. This is convenience at its best. Things change. I'm not willing to go on 8-year photos because you found a bunch. So that's just, we've watched this town in 30 years. I've watched water tables go up, down. I think the data is too old to label it intermittent.
And I think to make a decision, we should know, like, what difference is this going to make to the planning? To the development? What difference is this going to make? What difference is this going to make to the abutters? We should have that information.
I guess the only thing I would say to that is that there's literally 3 things that are required to make the determination, right? That it's the photos and it's a couple of things that Joe had mentioned there. That's the information that your regulations say we need to provide. And so we felt like we've provided that. And it is a shall. Is that right, Joe?
It is a shell with,
With a caveat.
with the caveat of Mass DEP providing clarification of their regulation.
Yeah, it's not our regulation.
No, I know.
It's the state's
It's more
regulation.
yours than mine, I'll tell you that much.
I see you raising your hand. We're still in the discussion phase, but this is a public hearing, so I will provide you a chance to ask any questions and stuff. So have you done an alternatives analysis?
No,
You-
right, I mean, that, so it just brings us into all of that stuff, right? And so to me, if it's one thing, then I don't need to invest the time to do that stuff, right? And so that's why we don't want to do it, is because we have this data that, granted, you certainly have the flexibility and latitude to review it and use your own judgment on it, but there's certainly no limitation to the date, right, in the regulations.
And so as it stands right now, your calculations, they don't, like, what will happen the next time it floods over there? Like this,
So that's a great question, right? So the floodplain is at elevation 115, right? Our development is really limited. The only impact we have below elevation 117 is a discharge pipe from our subsurface system. So that's what's going to control the flooding, right? So this isn't a base flood elevation, which means that during 100-year storm event, the water within the stream rises out of the banks of the stream, right? That's essentially what it is. And so to give you a sense for where the floodplain is, right? Because we do not want to mess around with the floodplain. The floodplain is down here, right? So it's actually below the elevation of the tennis court that we're going to remove. So we're not going to impact that at all, right? We're well aware of that. We're not doing anything whatsoever. Floodplains are generally controlled by elevation. The lowest item on our design is this item here at elevation 116. We're still a foot above the floodplain. So we're not proposing to take any storage out of the floodplain whatsoever. So this is, or even work within it, right? So we just talked about 1879, where we're doing work within the floodplain, but we're balancing the volumes. In here, we're not even doing work inside the floodplain. So next time it rains, next time we get that 100-year storm, we should not have an impact on it because we're not filling any of that area in.
a lot to think about. Because it's not a if it floods again, it's a when it floods again.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, and Joe, do you have any, like, why is it 200 feet from a riverfront as opposed to 100 feet from a wetland?
In general, it's because perennial streams provide, because they're always flowing, they have inherent additional benefit for, wildlife. And so that area kind of extends 200 feet from mean annual high water. Additional benefit for wildlife and other things that are listed in the regulations that I can't cite off the top of my head, but that's why it's considered a resource area. It was covered under the Rivers Protection Act, of Massachusetts, I think in 1996. But that's why.
But it's not the same, it's not, they don't set the 200 foot specific for floodplain. right? So sometimes your floodplain is 200 feet, sometimes it's, like in this one here, it might be 60 feet, give or take. That's just what it is. So when they map the floodplain, they map that based on elevation and based on the hydraulics of the water coming down the stream and the topography around that.
So, just for the sake of time and going forward, is the commission ready to, like, make the vote on intermittent versus perennial, or do you guys need more time, or?
We have our comment section first, before that, or you guys vote on it, then listen to us?
I mean, before we get to talk about.
I mean, so just to be clear, it's just, I'll let Dan answer the public hearing part, but it would just be how this straw vote goes would dictate like how the project proceeds in the future. So it's not a vote on, it's not a final vote on the project. It would just be like this specific regulatory compliance
I understand
aspect.
that. Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards, let's open it up to public discussion and then, so if there's no further comments.
Can I just ask one quick question? The USGS map, is there a date on that? Do we know when that was?
I don't know, but I believe I've checked the most recent one. They come out periodically, and each one, it's shown as a perennial stream. So that's where, if it's listed as a perennial stream on the most recent USGS map, then it's presumed to have perennial status.
Okay.
But wouldn't that, unless we provided them evidence, why would they change it though, USGS? That's what I guess, like, because I've brought this up before, like when we reflag wetlands, we never bring that information to Mass DEP, so those maps really never get changed, right? So just because it's marked as perennial, even though the town voted as intermittent.
Yeah.
Just as kind of the state versus the town, right? Type of, or government versus local.
Yeah, it's just like the lack of communication, I guess.
Yeah.
But they also may be characterizing it differently and not be referencing these regulations to classify it as perennial.
All right. I'm going to open up to the public. I ask that you go up, speak into the microphone. I need your name and address before you begin.
Hi, my name is Paula Rowe, and I'm an owner at Cottage Place. I have
Could you
pictures.
just pull the microphone a little bit?
Sorry.
Thank you.
My name is Paula Rowe, and I'm an owner over in Cottage Place. I do have pictures from August, which you've seen, but I've also taken pictures in October 21st. We had flooding coming from the stream, and I have them on October 31st, that we also had flooding coming in from the stream. It's also breaking down our driveway on that we get water over there so often now. So it's, I mean, if you want to see those pictures, I'll be glad to show you. This is October 21st, if you want to scroll through those. Rain. I don't know which way you want to go. Yeah, you can just go through the side of the building. You even got the ones out back. You can skip through. It goes right to, sorry, I got the pictures in the middle, but I have other ones of October 30. That starts October 31st.
So, I mean, just for reference, I'm sure everyone knows what happened this July and August. I'm sure all intermittent streams were, they had water.
This wasn't even that hard, and this is October.
Oh, that was October, okay.
You want to see them? They're October.
I'm all set. I drive by that stream every day. Thank you, though.
But not just all time. Hi, my name is Keith Bias. I also own a condo at 1147 Main Street. And Jim's been gracious enough to come out and show us around so we could see what was going on. I just have a couple of questions, though, and I'd like to refer to these things. So my understanding is since you changed the parking lot, this is going to change. This is not going to be a permeable parking lot. It's going to be something different. It's going to be a holding area or something?
No, all that's going to be is lawn. It's going to be grass, that's all. Yep.
Oh, okay, because when I talked to your associate today, she said that they were going to be putting in a containment thing that would hold 3,000 cubic feet of water.
Yeah, we are. It's just not located right there. It's located a little bit further up, closer to the building.
Okay, so it's on here somewhere? So the gist that I got is that this is going to take the excess water, you're going to have storm drains now instead of the permeable driveway. You're going to have storm drains that are going to go into this. That's going to hold, 3,000 cubic feet of water. And then if that overflows, that's going to go back out here to these wetlands.
Correct.
Which will then come in to that stream and come right by
Yes.
our property.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So the concern that I have is a couple. One of them, over here, you're coming in the driveway, and you're going to have to increase the elevation there by a couple of feet in order to get it to slope down towards Main Street. So all of this is sloped downward here now, and it goes over this side. And on this side, the water, it's like a little swampy area, and the water goes into a culvert, I guess. And then that goes into the town storm runoff
Drainage
system.
Yep.
Drainage
Yep.
system, yeah. So that's where it's going now. But when we do this, it's going to bring the elevation up. So it's going to put more water in the back, I would think. And that's going to eventually come over to us. So that's the concern, So if this thing fills up, then you're going to dump it into here, right? Is there any estimate of how much rain you have to have for that thing to fill up?
Yeah.
What is that?
So we look at 5 storms essentially, the 2, the 10, the 25, the 50, and 100-year storm event, right? And those all get bigger with the amount of rain that follows. And what we look at is how the site drains today, right? And then we put our proposal in, some additional impervious surface. Now, in this case, I believe the additional impervious surface is limited to like 10,000 square feet, which might sound like a lot. It's a quarter acre. It's not a lot, right? When you require 1 acre lots for single-family residential, we're not adding a lot relatively. But that additional impervious surface results in additional flow off the site, right? So the way we counter that is that we either have a pond, wet pond, an infiltration basin. In this case, we have subsurface underneath the parking lot. That will fill up, and then it will discharge up.
Right, so is there how much of an idea, I'm trying to get a sense of how much is that going to hold? I mean, we had those 2 big rain events.
Yeah.
We had 100-year flood happen 2 times this year.
Right.
And would that contain this from, because you're adding all this is going to be impervious, right?
Yeah,
Which
yep.
it isn't now. There's a couple of houses, but you are taking out the tennis court. But if we had something like that, is this system going to contain it? I'm just trying to get a feel of how much it's going to contain.
The way the designs generally work is that we don't increase any flow up to the 100-year storm, which is 7 inches of rain in 24 hours. So that's what we're told to design to, right? So that's what we design to. So if we get more than 7 inches in a 24-hour period, all bets are off, because that's a humongous flood.
And that's what happened 2 times this year, right?
We didn't get
7
7 inches. We got it was 6 inches.
Okay, so even at 6 inches, it was going,
yeah,
it was coming across.
Right. No, right.
Do you remember the video that we had last time, right? It's just gushing out of there.
Yeah.
And it's most of it's coming out of that. You can see, my wife took a picture of it coming out of, there's a culvert there. It was just barreling out of there, right onto our parking lot in the back, and just, run out. So the concern is that, to put more water in here, instead of putting it here, a lot of it's going in, I don't know how much, but some of it's going in here now, and it's
Yeah.
going into the town system. Whereas all of this is going to, and that's going to be built up, so it's not going to be doing that anymore. So it's going to be coming down and adding to this area even more, you know.
Yeah.
That's the concern. That will, you know.
Right.
I mean, we just don't want to get flooded, you know?
I understand
And
that.
the last, well, we were talking, when you had one of the previous people that was up here that lives down by the one you're doing across Main Street there, they're adding the parking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he said that whole development that he's in was all approved and everything, and now he's got all flooding in there. They got flooding in there, so,
Yeah.
you know, something's amiss somewhere. So we're just concerned that this is adding a lot of, you know, area that's going to be impervious, and it's just going to elevate this, and it's going to dump into us. That's the thing we're worried about, so. Can you make this thing bigger under the water, under the ground?
Yep, we could.
Because it holds, what, 3,000 cubic feet?
I don't know what that number is.
Yeah, I
It
think your
sounds
associate
about
said
right. It's like
3,000 cubic
3,200
feet.
Cubic feet, yeah, yeah.
So I don't know if that could be made bigger, or just to try to contain it before it overflows, because once it overflows, it goes right back into that stream, you know?
Right, but like, there needs to be an appreciation for the idea that like when it's overflowing, it's mimicking what's happening out there today, right? So because you see this thing overflow in the future, doesn't mean we're adding any flow, right? What it means is that we're releasing flow consistent with what's out there today. That's the whole premise, right? Is that the proposed development doesn't increase off-site runoff. And so what we do is we provide these ponds, voids, whatever, to hold water and then slowly release it.
Okay.
That's what we try to do.
Could they increase the size of that, though, from 3,000?
Yeah.
Because if that is larger,
Yeah.
then this you're gonna add runoff here too, because you're gonna build this up a couple of feet, right? So that's all of this is going down in here now that's being taken care of
Right,
by
but that
the
was,
town.
that was considered when we designed that 3,200 cubic foot subsurface system.
Okay.
So you're right? We modified the grade so that we can get access in and have everything drain, but that was considered when we designed that system. And the thing to keep in mind, right, is that the applicant just wrote a check for almost $10,000 to another engineering company, right, to just look at everything that we did and go through with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that it complies with the local, state, federal regulations, and then also standard engineering practice. So there's a lot of eyes on this. There's a lot of eyes here. Planning board, there'll be a lot of eyes. DEP looks at it. We have a consulting review. There's a lot of eyes on this.
Okay. The other point I want to make is on the perennial stream, whether it's perennial or not, Paula can tell you that it's not just the last 3 months. She looks out her window and she sees it all the time. And we took a walk down by the pond, and on the pond, they have a fence that's put up. There's a big culvert, and somebody put a fence around it, and it's collecting all the leaves. I mean, it's stopping the water from flowing. So, I mean, that would be, I would think, considered man-made.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's,
I'm just going to ask that this
Helvetia.
conversation be wrapped up.
yeah, it's near Helvetia.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking
You know
about.
what I'm talking about, right? It's all like stuffed with leaves and everything.
Beaver, yeah.
Yeah, so that was like the device that was installed, I believe, or a device that was installed at some point in time, which I believe is what you're referencing.
Yeah, it's like a fence. It's all stuffed full of
it's like a
leaves.
grate.
I got a picture here. I don't know if you want to look at it. But that's the picture I took. It's all, I mean, the water's just blocking the water. You can't get in the culvert. So, I mean, if you get stuff like that going on, that's going to dry that up too. I mean, I don't know what was
Yeah,
going on in 2015 or 2008, but, you know, who knows, right? Okay, that's it. I'm done.
Thank you.
Put my 2 cents worth in.
Thank you.
The only thing I'd like to add before you guys make a determination here is that, first of all, we did go and we met with this HOA twice, right? We walked around the site twice. We tried to answer every question that they might have, and that's one of the reasons we wanted to focus on just that one thing last time was so that we could get their feedback. The idea that a stream floods on occasion or even regularly is not connected to whether or not it's intermittent or perennial. So I think it's good information to have. It's good information for us to have, so that as we kind of walk through this design, we have as much information as possible. The only thing that matters, right, is that regulation. That's what matters, and that's what we'd ask that you abide by.
All right, so on the question on whether it's an intermittent stream, Dennis, do you have any strong opinions? Which way are you leaning?
Well, like I say, this whole brook goes right by where I lived for many years, and last meeting, I said that it was dry different times, you know? I know a few times, years ago, we called the town out, because it's on Lee Street, and that head wall would be plugged there, which would, of course, affect all that.
So are you willing to say that's an intermittent stream based on just the?
Oh, what I've seen, it is, you know, I mean, me being there.
All right.
I'm sorry, did you say it goes dry? Is that what you're saying? No, it doesn't go dry. It goes low, it does not go dry.
No, where my house is, it does.
Well, from where we are, it goes by under the.
It goes from where you are right to Lee Street.
So yeah, it's clearly not going to be a unanimous vote, but
Yeah.
some direction.
Because right now, I'm getting the sense from the commission that it's an intermittent stream. Like, and I'll tell everybody that I don't like that, but by the letter of the law, I think it's an intermittent stream. The applicant has to prove that there's not going to be additional flooding based on what they build, but that's still, there's going to be flooding there in the future, whether something's built there or not. But the plans that you've submitted, you're claiming that it's not going to add any additional flooding to that area. So that's how I'm coming down on it, I guess. I'm not a big fan of this, but guess.
Now, there's no modification to the current stream bed, correct?
No, not, we're going to stay
Status quo.
literally 130 plus feet away from the
I'm
stream
just
bed.
being
Yeah,
specific.
yep.
And what percentage is allowed to run off your property?
I'm sorry?
What percentage is allowed to run off your property? 0, correct?
Oh, 0, yeah. We can't add 1 CFS off of our property, right? So, and that's what the consultant will look at.
Okay. So what is the determination on this?
You don't need to take an official motion, just a straw poll.
But it's still, is it, like, I still don't know. Is it?
I'm on intermittent,
Okay.
based off all the data.
Intermittent.
I'm on intermittent, it sounds like.
So that would be just, the purpose of this is just so that the applicant has some direction in how they go forward.
So, yes.
Well, I will be on record as disagreeing, because we have the USGS map, and we have our knowledge as environmental scientists that the climate has changed, that 100-year floods happen every 25 years or more now, so I'll just go on record as saying that.
And I completely agree with you.
Ditto.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess if, to extend this conversation a little bit longer, if we were to say it's a perennial stream, we don't care, and vote on it, or give you the option, would you want us to vote on it and you can take that information with how you will, or you can come back at another meeting with potentially updated plans? Like, Is that too much of a hypothetical?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think, the request is that, to assess the information that we've given you and its compliance with the regulation, and if that's basically what I'm looking for, Beyond that, it's hard to think 2 and 3 steps down the road. Because the way this is going to play out is that we're going to get a review letter back, right? We'll get that second review letter back. Hopefully 80%, 90% of the comments are addressed. We're going to hopefully be buttoning this thing up as we go into Christmas or New Year's. That's the hope, right? So the next time we come back here, we'd be very close to asking you for a formal decision.
All right. So,
3 for intermittent, 2 for no,
yeah, that's
correct?
what.
All right, I can live with that.
All right.
Yeah, okay.
So, if there's no further discussion at this time, I'll ask to continue this notice intent and public hearing. Did you have a meeting in mind?
Would you mind if we put it on for the 15th? There's a chance that I think it's the 15th?
15th or 13th?
13, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a okay chance that we could get close enough for that, but it's probably 50-50, so I'd rather be on it and have to.
Yeah. I just ask, and I don't know if I can really hold you to this, but if you are going to continue at that time,
Yeah.
let Joe know as early as possible
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
he can communicate to anybody, who might want to come to that meeting that it's being continued.
Okay.
But could I have a motion to continue to the December 13th meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. And for agenda item H, my understanding is you also want to continue that.
Yeah, I thought we did, but yeah, the goal is, so same deal with that. We've received a review letter. We're in the process of addressing those comments and resubmitting that hopefully tomorrow, actually. So that one will be back on for the 15th, hopefully with.
All right, so in that case, could I have a motion to continue public hearing notice intent Civil Design Consultants, Inc. on behalf of 911 and 913 East Street, LLC, 913 East Street, Assessors Map 102, Lot 52D, P file number 305-1191 to the December 15th meeting?
I'll make that motion for December 13th.
13th. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well.
Thank you.
15th will be a busy meeting again. All right, so before we get to the enforcement orders, I'm going to take a quick recess because if anybody else wants to. 165 Assel Street, Assessor's Map 10, Lot 30. Is there anybody here for that? Could you please introduce yourselves for the record?
Jonathan Racinos and Nicholas Racinos.
All right. And Joe, I'll just ask you right away. Can you fill us in on the details on this one?
Yeah, so I think October 16th, I observed just unpermitted activity as far, and it included of some grading, landscaping, likely alteration of wetlands and potentially a stream bank. So I notified the resident who was there at the time to, stop all work. It was the topic of conversation for the November 1st meeting, at which point the applicant wasn't there, so the commission had decided to issue an enforcement order to facilitate, this meeting that we have today. But basically, the enforcement order, which I realize I don't think is included here, basically it's just a cease and desist all activity, maintain sediment and erosion controls which have been established. It's a silt fence, although it needs to be altered a little bit to be properly installed. And now it's just the commission kind of just having a conversation of, what the goals are and, how to proceed from here.
So you two, you're just trying to improve the existing land, the yard attached to the house? Is that my understanding?
Yes. So, as you know, this year there's been a lot of rainwater. So, I think it was the beginning of.
¿Cuándo fue de que nos dimos cuenta que había agua ahí bastante?
I don't remember exactly the day, but when I started to cut the grass, and when the machine is coming stuck, and when it coming on another side, and I bring the one pallet bricks, and I say my boat got is stuck, and that doesn't move because this make a lot of hole, and that's when I try to make the find the problem. That's when I see a lot of water is coming in. That's when I make that hole when my son Jonathan, and that's when I don't remember, but he's coming here because I need somebody come to see the problem. Somebody went to there, they said they say that I don't understand because it's never in the system about the pipe and the bottom and the end.
Yeah. So we noticed that there was a lot of water accumulated there. He tried to put in when we were cutting the grass with the machines. We would go through and they would kind of sink there. So we decided to dig a hole with the shovel, and we found a pipe. It looked like a drain pipe. I don't know from when it was there, but it was a metal pipe. It was rusted out, and we noticed water was going through it. We called DPW. I don't know if you have any record of that. So we called them so that they could go check because water was just flowing out. It was pretty consistent water flow, but they said they had no drainage or any sewer pipes going through there that they knew of. He said all of their pipes were near the road, so we decided to follow it and then try to replace it so that the water flow would be better. Because I think because it was already rusted out, that's the reason why water was accumulating in that spot right behind his house.
All right.
165 Assel Street is it's sort of on like a downhill, So it's like almost like one of the, well, Joe's been over there, it's one of like almost the last ones on that hill. So a lot of the rainwater just goes into there.
So it's, basically, the initial goal was to improve the flooding of the yard.
Yes.
And that's how, trying to rectify that, that's when you found the pipe. Joe, do you have any information on this pipe? or
I
is
mean,
it-
that's the first I've heard of. I think the resident, when I first spoke with her, when I was first there, said that there was an existing pipe there, but there wasn't any detail on DPW coming out there. But, nonetheless, I just saw someone installing a drainage pipe, into a wetland, what it seems like, or the bank of a stream or whatever. In addition to, bringing in loom and regrading and stuff. So, I guess, my recommendation to the commission is obviously, we can't be allowing people to, alter wetlands and streams and installing drainage pipes and stuff like to just improve, the saturation of their yard. So it would have to be, bringing this back to original conditions, whatever that is, bringing in the proper professionals in order to figure out what wetlands were altered, how much were altered, and restoring those wetlands back to their original conditions. And yeah. So that's just something for the commission to consider as far as like establishing a restoration plan for whatever wetlands or streams were there. Just working with an environmental consultant or a surveyor to prepare a restoration plan, and anything that you want to be remaining in place has to be permitted. Or if you just want to attempt returning it back to original conditions, then you just follow through this enforcement order, prepare that restoration plan, and continue having meetings with us to just make sure it's getting back to its original condition.
Yeah, because we're not, I don't want to speak for the entire commission, but I'm not trying to say you can't improve the yard or anything, but it should be permitted correctly, and, a pipe going directly into the wetlands is not something typically allowed just for drainage of a yard. I'm not sure what the typical solution is for that.
Well, that would be a consultant.
Yeah.
That-
So.
Yeah, because I think there's, if I'm not mistaken, I think there's two of the rainwater from the city. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think there's one closer to the top of the property, and there's another one basically at the bottom of the property between both his house and the neighbor's house.
All right.
So there's like two runoffs from the rainwater from the city.
I'm not sure, if the DPW came out and said they don't know what this pipe is, I'm sure it's not connected to those drainage systems that you're referencing on the street, I presume.
Yep.
So I guess in the enforcement or part of the recommendation would be not only the restoration plan, but also figuring out what that is and removing it. It's not supposed to be there. Yeah. And then also establishing a time frame for the restoration plan, so that's something that can be enforced.
Does anybody else have any questions, comments on this? So I'm currently leaning towards, it should, basically what Joe recommended.
I agree with everything that's been said.
A restoration plan. And again, that can include, application to essentially do a lot of what you wanted to do with, creating the lawn and stuff. But figuring out what was there before and how to get it back to that state. And if those, pipes were put in by you know, a previous person or if they're supposed to be there or if they're not supposed to be there. So at this point, yeah, that's what I'm recommending is.
Okay. So can we just be explicit in like listing out what's being required in this enforcement order? So it's going to be, maintaining the sediment and erosion controls as is installed and recommended originally. So that condition is going to remain. The second thing is it working with an environmental consultant to prepare a restoration plan and coming back to the commission within X amount of days?
I would think that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what is the X? Is that 60 days, 45?
I'd say 60 is,
January, yeah, 60 days.
yeah. I mean, things are starting to dry up.
Joe, do you have like a list of consultants they can work from?
Yeah, so we maintain a list of surveyors and wetland scientists that work locally. So those are people that you can call. And basically what they're going to do is try their best to establish where the wetlands were, where the stream was, if it was altered, and just use historical information to try their best at approximating what was previously existing and trying to prepare a plan that would show that to the commission and how you would bring that back to its previously existing condition.
Okay.
All right.
And you will be sending that list?
Yeah, I can send you an email.
All right, perfect.
$60 days. All right.
All right. So
So, sorry to interject, but so there would be there would need to be a motion to amend the enforcement order, as discussed.
all right. So if there's no further discussion from the commission or you guys, I'm going to request a motion to amend the enforcement order as discussed.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Thank you for showing up and working with us. Hopefully this can, make its way and it's not too troublesome for anybody involved.
No, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Next item is enforcement order 765 Whipple Road, Assessors Map 31, Lot 57. Hi,
How are you?
could you please introduce yourself for the record?
Karen Skinner-Catroni, wetland consultant.
And where do we stand from your perspective on?
So I visited the site, it was called, I worked on the order of conditions, the notice of intent for the applicants, and really haven't had contact with them since. And did at the time instruct them to follow the plan as it is. That was important. And I would like to apologize for I believe there's a bit of a language barrier there. I visited the site on Sunday and instructed them to reset the erosion control, which I've been told by the owner that they have done. I haven't had a chance to get out and inspect that, but, so I don't know if you've seen pictures of what transpired. So the property owners put a paver patio in the rear yard. It looks like they tried to avoid they tried to stay outside the 25-foot with the paver patio. And they also put some fill in on the side of the property. I'm being told it's only 2 feet. The fill was actually just the stone. There's no topos on the original plan, so I don't recall where the wall was. Do you recall where that was, the wall? The slope?
I mean, I believe it was there, but there wasn't any existing, like you said, there's no topographic
topo, yeah.
information to even, I have some pictures, but I can only approximate.
Yeah, so I'm being told that they went 2 feet further to put stone on, and I do have pictures of that if you haven't provided that
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
commissioners. I'm sorry, just
Yeah.
on my phone. but they sturdied the wall with stone, with boulders, and that brought it out 2 feet further than it was.
All right.
And if you could remind me, is your no-touch 25?
25.
25, okay, good. Hoping it wasn't 50. So I can show you the wall also.
So I drove by today and there was a ton of dirt on top of the wall.
On top of the slope on the
On the-
left-hand side?
Yeah.
Oh, that wasn't there when I was there. I
On
parked on that.
which side of the house are you talking about? Because there's
So as you're looking at the house on the left side,
the, all right, over
and there
there.
was some rocks, but then there was a ton of dirt on top of it, all built up, and I was thinking, wow, if it rains, that's gonna right into
So I
the,
called that slope, that area being pretty level with the street. I think they put fill on doing that work. So this is what I saw, this is what I took pictures of when I went out. And I'm sorry, I'm going through. So this is the side wall. They're telling me they stabilized it with stone. This is from the other side. And I brought it out 2 feet further than it was. And again, there's no topos on the plan, so I don't recall. This is the patio. It looks like they just bumped it out here.
I was like, geez, I hope we don't get a big rain.
And yeah, you're less concerned with the patio section of it.
Yeah, so, I mean, the reason why I'm less concerned with that is because this area was altered, like, as part of the project. It's still, all right, so I would still recommend, in general,
Yeah, we have, I
Okay.
think, similar.
I didn't know. Okay, great, thanks.
I still, it's just about, you know, what was permitted under the original order and just being compliant with that. If they want to keep a feature that they've added, then it would be through an amended order.
Okay.
But it would still be I mean, obviously subject to the commission's opinion, but it would still have to be compliant with our 25-foot no disturb. So for example, if they wanted to keep that retaining wall at all, it'd probably have to be,
Mitigation.
you know, push that in so it's not within the 25-foot no disturb. And then just put in the patio and what any other features that they currently have or want to have that wasn't originally communicated through an amended order. But
So before we amend the order to reflect that, is that like, I guess they still have the option to remove everything and go exactly to what the, original order of conditions says.
So they would prefer not to remove the patio because it was a great expense to them. And would do mitigation if the commission so wishes.
All right, do they have the land to do mitigation?
So on the side where the wall, where the slope is, there's a lot of opportunity for mitigation there. There's a lot of opportunity. I mean, they would stand to benefit, the commission would stand to benefit from that.
Yeah, what's the opinion?
Where they filled in for the ancillary driveway with the boulders? I mean, is that?
So it was previously disturbed there anyways?
Correct.
So they pulled.
Running boulders to make a
I understand that.
parking area.
I understand that.
Is that acceptable to the town as a parking area? Is that structurally sound? I don't know.
yeah, that's a whole other aspect of like building a retaining wall that, yeah, I don't know if that needs to be reviewed by building department or any other
So it probably
departments.
does because it's over 7 feet.
Yeah, in addition to driveways as well, that's typically permitted by DPW.
Okay.
So they would have to run that by them, so.
So I can discuss the slope with them and pulling out that mitigation. I think their real concern was the patio.
All right.
So, and we can do some mitigation there. Some plantings behind would certainly be beneficial between the patio and the fence. But I can discuss with the applicants how they want to handle that and recommend possibly taking that out because they'd have to get a structural engineer involved. So if you could give me the opportunity to do that, I can get back to Joe, discuss it with Joe, and then I can come back to the commission with some kind of,
Yeah, I think that's, yeah.
okay, awesome. Okay.
So we're not going to take a vote on this today because it's potentially amending. Yeah, but
Exactly.
we'll continue this. Is there, what's your preference on coming back
So
to?
I have a meeting on December 13th, so I can't make, I'm an agent in Westwood, so I have my meeting. And so what's your meeting following that? Because this is an off week for me.
January at some point.
We have to,
Let's see.
potentially,
The 10th, January 10th.
You guys second and fourth?
It generally, yes, but it varies depending on like holidays and town meeting dates and stuff like that.
Okay.
So January 10th.
January 10th is my meeting following that. But I'll see what I can do to have somebody here. I'll put, okay, perfect. Yeah, I'll talk to Joe
So,
about
so
it.
this isn't, we're not amending the enforcement order because you need to talk with your client about what direction they want to go? Okay, and what they're
I
willing
need to
to do?
encourage them to go into the right direction.
So I think maybe not attend the meeting, but let Joe know by a certain date is what we should
Absolutely.
do.
So, and that, if that's the case, then it might as well be the 13th, right?
Perfect, yeah.
Get an update by the 13th.
Okay.
Whether you communicate that to us, Joe, or someone's here
Absolutely,
from the
absolutely.
client.
I can do that.
Okay.
yes, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Appreciate you staying this long.
Not a problem. Sit here.
Very used to it.
All right. Agenda item K, enforcement order, Kevin O'Brien of O'Brien Homes, Inc., Andover, Massachusetts, Foster Lane, and map 24, lot 26. Could you please introduce yourself for the record?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, board members, my name is Kevin O'Brien. I am the applicant on Foster Lane. I'm a kind of an owner, my wife has it in her name, so I saw that I'm on the agenda tonight, so I thought I'd come and see what we're talking about.
So, yeah, where do we stand on the replication efforts for this?
All the replication work was done months ago. I think the last thing that, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, the last thing you needed was something from the consultant engineer, which is Maureen at Norse Environmental, which I believe has already been turned in.
Yeah, so I just want to provide some context. So this was discussed at the last meeting because the last meeting is when the commission was able to view the most recent document provided by Norse, which was basically a document that confirmed that, the wetland looked good in her professional opinion and that it would still require monitoring. The reason why I put it again on this agenda was because at the last meeting, the commission wanted to amend the order to reflect the conversation back in June of 2023, where at that time, the commission had said to get additional verification from Norse, right? So June 2023, the commission asked Norse to provide that additional verification, right? And then the commission got that document on October 18th, and that's when that was subject to the 18th meeting. But it was just never put in the enforcement order. So the last meeting, the commission just voted to amend the enforcement order to reflect the discussion on June 2023. So that's the only reason why, or that's what came of the last meeting, is just updating the enforcement order to reflect all conversations that have happened up to that point for just paper trail purposes. And so the reason why it's on again is because although we decided that last meeting, I just wanted clarification or for the record that what Norse had provided at the last meeting was adequate per the enforcement order. So I think the commission had just decided to amend the enforcement order to reflect all the conversation that we had. but there wasn't actually any confirmation that what Norse had provided was the verification that the commission was looking for.
Yeah, I think the difference was, didn't we ask for a plan, and there was no necessarily plan put in place, the replication was just done. And I just want to make sure that that October 6th letter makes sure that we don't necessarily need a plan, but the registration was done properly. So just.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right, and the photos were the proof, was the proof in the pudding that it looks great down there.
Yeah, so that was the purpose of Norse's most recent letter. But I just want a verification that, although now we've reflected that properly in the enforcement order, is that the document that is going to satisfy the commission?
I think so, unless you think anything else needs to be done, Joe.
I just think
I just want to make sure, because I haven't been to the site, so that's why there's 4 pictures, I'm asking your honest opinion, because I'm sure you've been out there.
Now, just to clarify, I guess is what we're doing, you had gone out there a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
To look at it.
Yep.
Are you satisfied with what's going on out there growth-wise and?
Yeah, it took much faster than I expected, and that's also reflected in Norse's letter. Like the enforcement order states, it still requires monitoring over time, so I wouldn't lift the enforcement order, I would still leave it, but I think now that the commission has indicated that's the document that they were looking for, all that's still required is just monitoring over time, which I don't think has changed.
So monitoring for the next 2 years, just like let's call it like a replication area again?
Exactly.
Okay, so the enforcement order stays in place as like the order of conditions kind of thing?
It stays in place, kind of in the same
The existing
timeframe.
order of conditions has in it that any replication would be under the, under the order of conditions that we have.
Yep.
So would it make sense to take the enforcement order off and just rely back on the order of conditions?
I see what you're saying.
Under the 2-year monitoring anyway.
So I see what you're saying, but the order references a different area for replication. So I would say that doesn't make sense, just because this enforcement order is specific to a specific instance that happened in time for a violation, different area of wetland that was altered. So I would still leave it.
I'm with Joe, right? Just leave it alone and.
Yeah, just monitor over time.
So it's like kind of 2 orders of conditions on it. It's not 2 orders of conditions, but it's 2 monitoring, ways of monitoring at the
There's
area
similar
that.
documents at this point saying, monitor these two.
Well, the order of conditions is, that site's not active. So the order of conditions, yes, it has language about monitoring a wetland replication area, but that wetland replication area was never satisfied or constructed.
And if that was done, that would require the 2-year monitoring again.
Right, for a different area.
Right, I agree with you,
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah.
So we just leave the order, leave it the way it is now, we monitor it for 2 years,
Yep.
and then hopefully in
Yeah.
2 years, we're all here again and we go.
It's monitoring over time, typically it's 2 growing seasons. Let me, I guess.
Is this considered a growing season this year?
I would say yes, you might.
I mean, if we started it back in May or June. Okay.
They look like a jungle.
Well, I haven't been out there in the past few weeks, but I know Joe was out there, so I know the wetlands plants were.
I mean, if it started in May, then I would probably say yes, just because that's almost a full growing season.
In the order of conditions we approved, that's for the full, development of the site. Is that, am I remembering that
Yeah, so that's
correctly?
for the whole
I believe
development.
so,
yes. And just the enforcement order says, a monitoring of the affected wetlands subject to this enforcement order is also required for at least 2 growing seasons. So if something happened where,
I'm okay with that, Joe.
Yeah.
I certainly don't have a problem with that, I understand that. I just wanted to make sure that's what I wanted clarification, guys. I wasn't at the last meeting, which I didn't know about. And that's what I do, I come to the meetings just so you all know, and I all know, we're almost reading from the same sheet of music.
I wasn't like going behind your back. This is just more of like an administrative, like.
Fine with me.
Yeah.
I think we've done the administrative work done.
Yeah.
Super.
All right, yes.
Can I go home?
thank you. Yes.
You guys can
Sorry.
too. Thank you very
We're
much.
here for another
Enjoy the
2 hours.
holidays. See you next year.
All right. Conservation Commission schedule, or 2024 schedule. I am so pro any day off we can get. I think there should be a federal holiday every other week. And I didn't notice Juneteenth on there, and that was a mistake. So Joe has redone the schedule, so we're not working any federal holidays. If anybody has any questions or concerns about it, but if not,
Just moving that date to June 26th.
yeah.
That's all.
So could I have a motion to approve the new Conservation Commission 2024 public meeting notice schedule?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. And now, tree cutting discussion, 740 North Street, Assessors Map 51, Lot 3. Joe, do you have a brief update on this?
I put this on the agenda as a placeholder just in case people come in response to the letter that I sent out.
They were sent out, though.
Yeah, they were sent out. I think the time frame was like 60 days to provide something.
All right.
I'm still, yeah. It's on the to-do list to think of other creative ways to force people to comply.
Yeah. All right, sounds good to me. Are there any old business, new business, administrators' reports?
Well, new business, that recording's on the website now, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so the recording of the discussion on the proposed changes to the bylaw and the regulations, Tewksbury Wetland Protection Bylaw and regulations, it's on our website. It's about an hour long, me talking.
You did a good job, Joe. Very good.
Both people were impressed.
Yeah, that's it.
All right. Next meeting, which will probably be a busy one, is December 13th, 2023, our last meeting of the year. And with that said, could I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well.